a whole bunch for discussion. We have another meeting. I think I have so many things. I think, oh, yeah. And then the reports to the clerk.
Right. Every time. Very efficient then? These are very comfortable chairs. Right, so you want me to take Mason to school in the morning? Okay. Did you text Britt? Okay. Well, I'm getting ready to start a meeting, my council meeting, so, yeah, well, I'm gonna include you so you have Ashley, do you have anything to report from the closed session?
I do. City Council, by unanimous vote, approved the purchase of all 5 properties listed on item 1 of the closed session agenda, which totaled 7.64 acres. The purchase price was $1.3 million, plus a 10% bidder's premium for a total of $1.43 million.
Thank you. Okay, now, roll call, please. Vice Mayor Cruz?
Here.
Councilmember Heward? Here. Councilmember Campion?
Here.
Councilmember Lampton?
Here.
Mayor Powers? Here. Jim, would you please stand for a silent prayer and the flag salute? I'm going to let Cora Hall lead the flag and salute after we have a minute when the bell goes off.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, video statement, please. This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Universe cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.fastmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, June 9th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, June 10th at 9 a.m. The City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Thank you. Okay, council, any agenda approvals, additions, and/or deletions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I was wondering if we could move item M to follow the consent item. I think it'll be.
That sounds good to me, council.
Thank you.
Okay. No presentations. We already did public comment. Information and consent calendar, since there were no additions or... Oh, I'm sorry. We have one, we do have one public comment. Sherry Rada, did I say that right? Yes. Rada. Come on up, Sherry. Up here. And just state your name and if you live in the city of Galt, please. Sherry Rada. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have said when you get to the podium. Welcome.
I'm here today because I got turned in for having 2 American flag poles in the front of my house and did not know it was illegal to have 2 American flag poles in front of the house. Today is D-Day, of all the days to have to come here about 2 American flags. Look how many soldiers were killed at Iwo Jima trying to put American flagpole up. I mean, this is America. We should have the right to be able to have 2 flagpoles in their property. They were done professionally. They weren't done tacky. They look beautiful, as you can see from the pictures. My father was a World War vet and was shot. My husband is a Navy vet. And to me, this is despicable that you cannot run your American flag and have 2 flagpoles. I mean, I've gone to the county, the planning commission, and I've spoke to Chris. He said it's a code. I mean, there has to be a way that we can overturn this, do a petition to overturn this. I mean, why are we in America if we can't fly our flags?
Is it a problem with the 2 of them, or is it...
Yeah, we did get a complaint on the property regarding the flagpoles, and the code is pretty clear, unfortunately, and it states that flagpoles are limited to 1 per parcel, and the maximum height is 20 feet from grade per pole. So, unfortunately, the way our code reads, the 2 flagpoles are, 1 is illegal. So, and it is real clear, and didn't leave us much option.
Plus, I also got told I had to pay a permit fee, which I didn't know anything about either, to add insult to injury.
Well, the
But I mean, I
other,
had no problem paying the permit. If I would have known, I have no problem with that. I've paid every permit that I've been asked to do, anything I do in my house. My problem is flying my 2 American flag poles. And I think I should have the opportunity to at least put a petition up and try to change this law before I have to pull it out, which has to be pulled out by tomorrow. And I can't pull it out now because my brother fell and was taken to the emergency and dislocated his shoulder. So I can't even get it out by tomorrow anyway.
the flagpole does require a building permit, so the property owner was asked to get a retro building permit for one of the poles and then remove one as well.
I don't think that it's anything to do with flying, you know, the American flag. If you're going to fly the American flag, you only need one flagpole. I think it comes down to how many flagpoles are reasonably needed, particularly in a residential zone. And that would also apply probably in commercial zones. But if you look in commercial zones, you'll see pennants, flagpoles, and it's used as an advertising mechanism. And I think that probably the thought process behind that is that this is a residential zone. If you wish to fly your flag, certainly you have the right to do that. But that only takes one pole.
But on other houses, you can have as many flags as you want on the whole garage, if you'd like, 10, 15 of them.
But that's not on a pole.
But they are on the pole, just not on a upright pole.
A flagpole, a conventional
I mean,
flagpole.
honestly, it's a pole, it's a pole. And that's all I'm trying to say. I just like to have the opportunity to petition to change this law. Every person, the veteran,
You can do that through the planning commission.
okay, because, I mean, the Veterans Association, everybody have, I mean, I've had people stop and tell me how beautiful this looks. You have one person driving around the neighborhood turning people in, and that's what ruins it for people in our city. And I just moved here 6 weeks ago, and this is my welcoming.
You know, I would like to say that the code was updated. We had a comprehensive code update in 2015. You know, we are finding some issues with some parts of it, and we do plan to do a cleanup of that comprehensive code update at some point in the future. I was kind of waiting until we had a little bit more staff to kind of push that through. You know, and this is one of the items we can review, kind of look at what other cities are doing and see, you know, what type of impact maybe two can have on a residential lot. But I think the problem for the current situation is the timeliness of that she's under a current code violation and being asked to remove.
Well, we can certainly look back into it, as Chris says, but unfortunately, right now, the ordinance is only one. And we can look into it, but it takes some time.
Well, and I think we always need to remember, I've been by this particular house. You know, the 2 American flags look very nice, but what if somebody wasn't flying an American flag and they were flying something else? I mean, you know, it's a flagpole, so you could fly anything up that. And so I think that's what the ordinance was written to encompass, is that it might not always be an American flag somebody's choosing to fly. And so for that reason, the ordinance, you know, was written as it was, as part of the zoning code.
Okay.
So is there a way I can, obviously I need an extension.
Sorry to interject. I would recommend if there's more discussion or debate on this issue, we can always slot it for a future meeting.
Well, we're okay. We're almost done. So, yeah, we're almost done. And you'll have to take it up with the planning department if you can get an extension, correct?
Yeah, we'll be in touch and work with code enforcement on possible extension.
Okay, and what about getting a petition to see if we can get this overturned? Do I have to work with you on that?
Yes.
Okay, so I need to come and discuss it with you.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me.
Well, and
Appreciate
thank you. Thank you. Okay, where are we at? The agenda approval, wait a minute, the consent calendar. Sorry, got a little off
Okay,
there.
got it.
Donna, do you mind reading, please, the 7 items on the consent calendar?
Sure. Minutes of the regular meeting, May 16, 2017, and the special meeting of May 30th, 2017.
Receive and file warrants for the period ending May 23rd, 2017. Award of analytical laboratory testing of potable drinking water and wastewater and semi-annual groundwater monitoring and report preparation contract. City Council procedural guidelines amendment. Zoning ordinance 2017-05, repealing and replacing Chapter 18.58, cannabis, marijuana cultivation of the Galt Municipal Code. Award of chemical supply contract. And item 7, Treasurer's report for period ending April 2017.
Do I have a motion, council?
Move consent.
Do I have a second? Moved by Vice Mayor Cruz, second by Councilmember Campion. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, I guess we're down to city, are we going to do, M2, the city clerk, go with the, to you, Donna.
This is the Galt Area Historical Society request, extension of community benefit funding grant 2016-2017. The city received a letter from the Galt Area Historical Society asking City Council to carry over the $7,000 grant to fiscal year 2017-2018 due to the extensive planning and the required architectural review for the Ranch Barn project.
Yeah, I had asked for this to be placed for council to take an action, and I believe we have the Janice Marcetti, president of the society, in the audience. Would you like to speak, Janice? Happy birthday, I guess.
Thanks to Facebook, huh? Mayor Powers, council members, thanks, yeah. I'm Janice Arcey Gray. I'm president of the Galt Area Historical Society, and I am here to ask for the extension of the $7,000 grant that you gave us last year. This grant is to be used for the building of an event center, learning center, which will look like a barn at the McFarland Living History Ranch. We had previously received some grant monies from Sacramento County, and we've been doing a lot of fundraising for our bucket board towards this. But the first of the year, we received a large anonymous donation from some donors, and up to that point, it was just a vision and a dream to build this barn. And when I call it a barn, it's not a barn for cows and horses and hay. It is an actual public building as an event center and a learning center. We now have the funds to proceed with the largest project that we've ever undertaken. And we've recently hired an engineer, Mike Smith from Lodi, and he is doing the design and the plans where he's actually given us a preliminary plan already. He will be meeting with the board next week to go over it for the first time and for us to make suggestions and for him to fine-tune it. So we're on our way. And so I'm actually here to respectfully ask you to extend our $7,000 from last year to go towards next year. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or for me?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We're always,
Thank you
for all the work you do, Janice, and happy birthday. So, do I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Don't argue, kids. Okay, Councilmember Lamson and Councilmember Campion. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay. So now we're going back to, discretionary funds. I am asking council to approve the allocation of $700 that I have left to go to Community Emergency Response Team CERTs. I'm just going to read a little something about CERTs. They're all volunteers, and you know, we see them out there all the time at any events we have. They're always there, and I think we had 3 incidences at the Strawberry Festival, am I correct, where their services were needed? 5?
9.
9? So we're really glad you were out there. Their primary training initiative is to prepare the public to meet the challenge of a natural or man-made calamity or disaster in their community. The program envisions that trained citizens who volunteer can make communities safer, stronger, and better prepared to respond to the threats of terrorism, crime, public health issues, and disasters of all kinds. they have a booth that they provided all the events free of charge, and I think that, you know, they need a little bit of money now and then for upkeep or just to stock whatever's in there. I guess if we had 9 units, we're probably going to need some more bandages or smelling salts or something. But I appreciate everything that you do, and I know a lot of you have been doing it as volunteers for a very long time. And so it would be my honor to give my $700 of the discretionary fund to you guys for the excellent work you do. So I need a motion.
Second?
Okay, Campion and Sampson, call for the vote, please.
I just have a question. Doesn't the CSD, I mean, just like we fund CAPS, doesn't the CSD help fund CERT? I mean, that's just my understanding. I mean, I'm just asking.
Do you want to come up?
Aren't you funded under CSD also as volunteers under CSD, kind of like?
I think they don't have any problem.
Oh, well, I mean, that's what,
Yeah,
if that's
okay.
an issue, I want to. I mean, I agree, you do a great job, we need you.
I'm Craig Walton, I'm a sergeant with the Galt Police Department. This is Brian Shelley's from Consumers Fire. The program originally started here locally in 2007. It was grant funded. By 2010, we had no more money. So CSD's been funding it on and off over the years, trying to keep the program alive. 2015, the City of Galt and the City of Elk Grove granted us $5,000 to keep the program afloat. We teach several classes locally, which would be 3 basic classes a year here in Galt, plus additional training as CPR, first aid, not just to the members, but search classes, missing people classes, that sort of thing. CSD has funded the program through either grant money or their own money. The last couple of years, it's been their own money. So the money that we spend locally is reimbursed through, well, paid by CSD. The problem we run into is when CSD doesn't have the money, we don't have the money. So it costs me roughly, I don't get paid for teaching classes, and I teach 3 classes here a year minimum. I take vacation to teach other classes on the weekends. We don't have the money, the grant money, to do that any longer. It costs about $700 a class for students. They're not teaching, but for the students' material and teaching material, certificates, that sort of thing. They continue to fund that, but when we get close to the end of what they have to give us, any donation that we can get or grants that we can get, we absolutely need. Strawberry Festival alone, just in materials, probably cost us a couple of $100, not including the wages of the people that are out there. CSD picks up Brian Shell's wages and the other firefighters that are out there, but the volunteers we still use, as Mary Lou said, we use bandages, we use a ton of water that we provide to not only the CERT members, but the community as a whole. Anytime there's an injury, we provide all the materials that we need until the medics get there. So it is pretty much CSD does fund the program, but at some point they're going to say that's how much is it worth to the City of Galt and to the community.
Do you only go to Galt events, or you go to Elk Grove events also?
We go to both. It's actually a regional program, so if our neighbors to the north were to send out a request, we would add volunteers to whatever incident they have. If there are volunteers available, volunteers have logged in the neighborhood of 1,000 volunteer hours so far this year. The flood event was a good use of the CERT program. We had flood volunteers helping both agencies. We logged several hundred volunteer hours during that incident, those several weeks through the flooded areas of both communities. So it's a regional program. We could go between Sacramento, Folsom. The majority of the events are here in Galt and the City of Elk Grove. That's where we usually focus.
Last year we did send several of our members up to the wildland fires up in San Andreas, and they were up there for animal rescue, which is another service that we provide in the event of disaster. They also staff our heating and cooling centers. When we have to staff those, they're the ones that are trained by the Red Cross to run the centers, which meets the minimum qualifications that we have to run the centers. So they do a lot of work down here. Fortunately, we haven't had to call them out as much in the last 2 years as we have in the past. We probably in 1 year had to call them out for missing kids, missing adults, at-risk people 2, 3, 4 times a year. Fortunately, in the City of Galt, we haven't had to do that lately.
So but the majority of your funding does come through CSD currently,
All of it
All of-
comes through the CSD at the moment, yes.
which we're part of. Okay, thank you.
Well, I know how hard it is to look for grants, and I'm going to say it right now. I think Elk Grove and Galt ought to belly up to the table and give you guys some funding for this. So
And we,
it is budget time, and we'll look into it. I think this, both cities, we used to do it before, and, you know, you're vital to us, so we need to look into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, did we do the vote?
Yeah.
No. Oh, okay, I knew there was a first and second. That's why I'm asking. Okay, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. Okay, now we're to our city manager, the firing range status report and fiscal update.
Yeah, Mayor, council members, just wanted to take a brief opportunity to give you an update on the firing range and ask to take action tonight on adopting a resolution to establish a firing range enterprise fund. We're moving into bringing you a budget at our next council meeting, and we'd like to include that within our budget. The new range, phase one, has been completed and is operational. The sources of funding for the range are from accumulated rents, from the 50-yard range and interfund loan from the general fund. The total cost of the construction of the new range was about $1.5 million, and there's about $55,000 remaining, within that fund. The revenue currently, that we're receiving off that range includes CDCR revenue of $300,000 a year. And this goes through 2018, and there's 2 one-year extensions on their contract, which will take us to 2020. And approximately about $10,000 in lease revenue that we're receiving from the 50-yard range, for law enforcement purposes. Expenses at the range includes the loan payment that we borrowed to complete the range, landscape maintenance, road maintenance, lead maintenance and management, and annual monitoring and staff time. The lease payments for the range, we are utilizing 4.1 acres of property from the wastewater treatment plant. When the staff report originally came to the council a few years ago, the idea was to also pay for that property. Rethinking that with staff, it probably makes a lot more sense than leasing that property. We have several different leases out at the wastewater treatment plant that our staff manages, and we thought that the funds, the leases are for agricultural leases. With the similar acreage and all that, we thought that we would just set up a lease payments for the 4.1 acres that would go back to the wastewater treatment plant. And there's also a one-time payment that we need to make to Swenson Talk Preserve. That was originally discussed, when we built the range. That's a $39,000, $300 cost, and we're recommending making that right away, out of the revenue that we're receiving. The 50-yard range generates about $10,000 a year in revenue. However, that range does need a lot of upgrades. We're going to recommend in this next year's budget to budget $30,000 from the revenue we're receiving to do some upgrades to that 50-yard range. The enterprise fund, establishing that, we basically take our the revenues that we're receiving and use those revenues to cover the expenses out at the range, and basically make it a self-supporting operation. There's a chart in the staff report right after the resolution that kind of shows the cash flow that we're projecting over the next 5 years. Again, this is some projections that we put together. We'd like to do, once we set up the enterprise fund, our next steps would be to explore the feasibility of expanding the use of the range and possibly generate additional revenue. Once we get the loans paid off and we kind of get the operation kind of set, then we come back to the council and we can take a look at and discuss what are our next steps. Do we go to phase 2, which was 2 200-yard ranges next to the 3 100-yard ranges, and there's some other phases involved there, so we can have those discussions. at a later date, but at this point, we'd like to set up this enterprise fund, kind of get a self-sustaining, operation out there, and then take a look at additional, potential uses. Any questions?
No?
I was just going to say, all of the, for both the, including the 50-yard range, all of those maintenance costs would come out of the revenues generated from rents and lease.
Okay. And the $30,000 that we're recommending to do some upgrades. And once we get into that, that's an estimate. I may need to come back and, adjust those numbers a little bit. But, for right now and for budgeting purposes, for our next meeting, we would like to, budget those amounts.
Okay, so we need to do a motion for that?
And the motion tonight would be to see the report and adopt a resolution establishing the firing range enterprise fund. We have a resolution attached to your agenda.
Okay, do I have a
So moved.
second?
Second?
Okay, we're on this side now. Cruz and Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. I'm going to have to recuse myself from the next item, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and we do have someone, because I'm on the board for this animal services, and we do have someone out in the audience if you have any questions. So I'm going bye-bye, and don't forget to call me back.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so moving on to the Community Animal Services Nonprofit Funding. We'll give the mayor a chance here to exit. Mr. Palazzo.
Thank you. Just real briefly, last year the council reviewed the animal services funding and granted $5,000 to the organization to basically form the organization and get it started. Tonight is an update on where that organization's at, kind of show in the staff report where that money has been spent. And their ask this evening is to, grant another $5,000, so they can kind of move forward with their phase 2, with the program. Again, the nonprofit, and I need to applaud them. They did, quite a bit of work on this project over the last year. Created a nonprofit called Perfectly Possible. Attached copies of the web pages, in the staff report for your review. They've, provided, several, types of animal services, through this last year. It's mainly, pet, location, I guess I'm going to call it, housing for the pets until they can get adopted, foster parenting, I guess, or foster petting. And they've also provided, services, medical services, for different animals and pets within our community. The whole concept of this was generated, several years ago through our animal control contract that we have with the county. We're, pretty far out from, their shelter and services, and the idea was to start, some sort of foundation to kind of self-help our pets in our community, so they don't have to get relocated to another part of the county until some, their owners can, kind of either pick them up if they're somehow got loose, from their owners, or if we can get the pets adopted within our community. So staff's recommendation is to direct staff to include another $5,000 in this year's budget in the community grants fund, which will be a new fund that we're going to recommend, to the council in this year's budget, that will kind of house all of our community grants, so we can track these and report back out to the council on how funds have been spent. Again, the staff report provides a lot of backup documentation on how last year's funds, and a letter from Perfectly Possible on their request and what they would like to do this next year.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No, not on this item.
Discussion?
I think it makes economic sense. I mean, if the city's saving $10,000 by funding this for 5, it makes complete sense, and it's a good cause in the community.
Do we have a motion?
I have a question. So, Emily, when we got the $15,000, was that $15,000 reduction per year or in the entire contract? Or Jean?
I'm gonna have Chief Sockman
Chief?
take a
Okay.
shot at that one.
So I know there was a $15,000 reduction given in the contract. Was it $15,000 per year or was it $15,000 one time? That's the question.
So it was for the contract, however,
And
the contract also allows them to raise the rates based on their costs.
So it was an annual savings, though.
Right?
No, it wasn't annual. It was over the 3-year period of the contract, correct?
We're supposed to be 3% of the overall in the county for animal services, but because of our volume of animals going up to animal services up in Bradshaw, and with this agreement that they would come pick up the animals once a day as opposed to whenever we have animals, they reduced it to a 1.5 calculation. So that's where the reduction is. In the first year, it came out to 15,000, but when their costs go up, so do ours. So that's how the reduction happened. That's how they calculated it out.
So they recalculated each year what
Every
our
year.
savings amount will be?
No, we still are at that calculation of 1.5.
Okay.
So, but our costs can go up every year after that. So, I'm answering two questions at the same time. Your question is, it was a 50 reduction. Is yes, it's continuous throughout the contract.
Okay.
I probably confused you more than I answered the question. So,
A
the
little
answer to your question is yes.
Okay. So it was 15,000 over the life of the contract.
Each year.
Oh, it was each year, so it's annually.
It's an annual
Okay.
reduction.
But it doesn't
It's
have.
based on percentage.
It's not necessarily 15,000. It could be less based on our costs.
correct.
Okay.
It's a percentage, and that year it came out to 15,000.
Last year it was 15,000. This year it could be more, less. Okay, that's just what I wanted to know. I just know that they're, okay, because that number seems to get thrown around a lot.
You were clear in your question. I was
Okay,
not clear in
that's
my
fine.
answer.
Thank you. Anyway, that's it.
Any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
So moved?
A motion by Councilmember Hewer and a second by Councilmember Campion. Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye?
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lampton,
Aye.
Mayor Powers, Vice Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Unanimous, with one recusal. Could someone please have Vice Mayor Payne come back in?
Payne?
Hey, how long it takes you?
Really?
Mayor Powers. Probably gonna shoot. Oh.
Thank you, Officer Slater.
Wow.
Oh, you're not gonna live that one down. Or the correction.
Oh, they're doing a good job.
Established.
Yeah, we're at the City of Galt Special Events Sponsorship Policy. Armando?
I'm already
there
here.
you are.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I hope you guys are having a good night. At the April 18th council meeting, staff presented a special event sponsorship policy to council. After review and discussion of the policy, council directed staff to remove verbiage regarding the 50% of the program budget, raise the request amount from $3,000 to $5,000, and to show it in a red line version to show changes. You can find the changes in the staff report, and a clean version is attached to the staff report of the policy. Staff is recommending that council adopt a resolution establishing the City of Galt Special Event Sponsorship Policy, and I'd be glad to take any answers or any questions, and hopefully give you answers.
Well, should we have our public comments come up first, council?
Fine.
Okay. Sherry Daly?
Hi, Sherry Daly. I live in the city. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I want to first commend you all for taking this on because I know it's controversial and it's important to the budget and to the community. So thank you all for doing that. I looked at the proposed policy a little bit, and I have to say, after watching the last meeting or two over this, it really seems like you all are being put in a really difficult position of kind of picking winners and losers. And it's sad because I know that just because you don't spend all of the city's budget on puppies, then no one hates puppies. So, I mean, it just puts you all in a difficult spot, and I think the policy that you have before you tonight will perpetuate that rather than making it better. So rather than being someone who just complains on the sidelines, I thought I would bring some helpful suggestions to you tonight. So for it to be a real policy, it should be tied to the budget somehow. So there should be a percentage of the budget that is always dedicated to this fund, and it should be set on what we've historically spent. That seems fair. It seems fair to the taxpayers. We shouldn't just randomly put amounts into a budget each year, depending on how we're feeling or who's putting pressure on us. And that makes it fair and reasonable for as we grow. So as we grow and our budget gets bigger and we tie this fund to some part of the budget, then when we get more citizens and more revenue, we can fund some more festivals, as long as we keep growing and the money is there to do that. The second policy recommendation I would make is that you do what the Vice Mayor suggested in putting a cap. I personally think 5,000 is too much, but it's difficult when you're looking at the various sizes of the events. So I think a way to handle that would be a policy that you would project some portion of the profit an event makes towards reimbursing the city. So let's say you're a very large festival and you make $50,000. If the amount was 10% that you have to reimburse the city back out of profit, not out of gross, then the larger events could still enjoy some support, but they would be paying back the taxpayers. The smaller events, if you make nothing, you don't owe the city anything. So it encourages new events and some of our smaller events. The next thing I would do that would make it important, essentially for you to have to keep being put in this position, is put a 5-year cap on it. So let's say the event doesn't reach sustainability or profitability over a 5-year time period. Well, they've had enough support. Let's let some new blood come in and let some other event be involved in the festival funding policy. So I think the last thing that would make it fair for everyone is that the current groups be grandfathered. And these groups have worked a long time, put in a lot of volunteer hours, and they should get their 5-year clock started this budget cycle so that they are not disincentivized for the hard work they've put into their festivals to this point. So those are my recommendations, and because I write policy for a living, of course, I wrote them down for you. Thank you, and again, thank you for taking this project on.
Thank you, Sherry. Council? Any?
I question the change in well, a couple of things, but why would we change the way it reads now? It says local nonprofits must submit a program event operations budget to the clerk's office no later than 45 days, calendar days before the scheduled event. And that seems reasonable that you have an estimated budget in order for council to consider in terms of because my understanding was that these wasn't the original each year they were to submit a budget, and there's a date in here, I forget the date, so that everything could be considered at one time. Now it says 30 days after the scheduled event. Well, that's not doing a budget. That's simply reporting on what you expended after the event, which is not budgeting monies, and it's not planning for anything. It's whatever you have spent. So I'm definitely not in favor of changing that language. I think that we still have to have a budget in advance within that window, and people need to be responsible, to bring that forward. I think this encourages somewhat of a lackluster approach to whatever budget or budget planning there is for each one of these events. So I would be opposed to that and would recommend that we stick with the original language whereby they had to have it to the clerk's office, when was it, 5 p.m. the third Thursday of March. I believe that's correct.
Well, maybe, you should have both. You should see what they're gonna project to
and that's
spend,
not a
and
bad
then when it's
idea.
over with, you should see exactly how it went. So then you can base, you know, because I think this is where the confusion came, and you're right about one, but we're right about the final one too, to show us what you did so we can, you know.
Well, I think it gives them counsel and understanding
Right.
if you're going to look at, okay, some of them may be profitable, as Daley was saying, others may not be as profitable, and that may have some effect on future funding for particular organizations. You know, I think more information is always better than less. So I would agree.
Yes, you may.
Number 13 change was a reflection of number 5. They were required to submit 45 days prior when it was tied to 50% of their operation budget. They will still be required in March, on that March deadline, to submit a special event application, estimated budget, and then come back with us because council has asked for some reporting on the festival or event. So the 13 was changed in compliance with 5. Because 5,
I'm not sure how
when, previously when we had to not be more than 50% of the operating budget, they were supposed to turn in a budget to us, 45 days prior to the event, so we could pay for up to 50% of that budget.
So, I'm sorry, so do we need to add verbiage back in there that does it say somewhere that they
I
have to
believe
fill
it,
out?
it reads what you're talking about, where it's still due at the end of March, the third Thursday in March. And then 45 days after the event, you would do a report to City Council stating this was our budget, what I do with the IDC and the lighting of the night type thing.
Right.
45 days after or 45 days before?
45 days after.
So
So
like
they would do the
number
report after the event, with all the expenditures, revenues, and that type of information.
Well, this is 30 days. Is that a change?
I'm sorry, 30 days, I'm sorry.
So Armando, maybe the application should include a copy of their proposed budget.
Okay.
I don't see on the application where it asks for the proposed budget. So maybe they should submit a preliminary budget as part of it. I mean, you have attached copies of marketing, advertising, and promotional, but maybe budget should be part of that, so that there is some idea.
Okay.
I also like the idea of, I really think that organizations or festival events need to not continually rely upon the city for funding. And so I really think that it is a good idea to look at, they need to look at a business plan. If there is a need for sponsorship to be able to help organizations start events and to be able to bring those events and promote the city of Galt and do those things, I think that's absolutely acceptable. But I actually agree with the speaker in the fact that at some point your business plan needs to include what your total costs are. And if you can't, after 5 years, if an event is not generating enough funds to pay for itself, then you need to look at your business plan and you need to figure out why this event is continuing to require sponsorship. And there might be events, I mean, I absolutely agree there are events that provide for quality of life. And but I do think that at some point there needs to be not an expectation among organizations that they will just continue to be able to come to the city for funding. We've got, you know, we have our own budget issues, and organizations that are doing events need to take into account. In some communities, Sacramento, you have to pay for all your fees up front, and before your application's even approved, you pay all your fees. So I think that there needs to be some awareness among the community. If you're putting on events, then we need to take into what our total cost is. And I'm not just talking about events, I'm talking about all of the things that the city has continued to weigh fees on. That it needs to be part of your business plan to become self-sustaining.
Okay, well, I totally disagree with that. Having worked for the city of Sacramento, I know that they put out a lot of money every year in every district to put on events. They can pick it, it's usually up to the council member with their event, but they do go out, when events are put on here, the city should help support these events because they are bringing people in. And if you ever worked for a nonprofit, you know that there's only so many sponsors in this town. And after a while, they get a little tired of the 50th person saying, could you please support our event? That is the sad news about the city of Galt. It's just hard right now to get sponsors. You have a few very good people that will help you out with everything. And, you have a lot of small businesses that can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're struggling here, to have good events so we can get people into town. And I think the city needs to step up and help with some of it. I just, it brings people into town, and I think to say that I think we need to say that the city should have a little bit of responsibility of helping get this stuff going. It's a small town, and it's tough to get some of these things going. And I know people that are out there all the time volunteering. It's not about paying anybody for it, because they're out busting their rears all the time just to get this stuff going. People put in hours and hours and hours for events out here, and I just think that the city needs to step up and help.
But the city isn't an unlimited funding source, and so at some point, you need to look at your business plan and how you can become self-sustaining and not looking to the city to sponsorship. And it's really not the city, it's the taxpayers that are sponsoring.
Well, and we have different opinions of what taxpayers think about stuff. The taxpayers I talk to don't really care about helping out with stuff. So, we have some taxpayers that, we've got different people with different things. So to always say the taxpayers, I understand it's the taxpayers, but not every taxpayer thinks the same. So when we get bigger, that's great. Hey, we get 5,000 houses, we get more businesses, we get more sponsors, then maybe we will be self-sufficient for all these events. But we have to look at who we are now and what people are trying to do with our city. And I have to tell you, some of the events, and I'll just pick a few, like the extravaganza and the Heritage Festival, which are getting bigger and bigger, are really bringing a lot of people to town. And the other thing that's important is the camaraderie of our people in town. It's nice to go out somewhere and have everybody show up that actually lives in or around the city and wants to hang out and meet their neighbor. These things are really important in town.
I'm not judging individual events there. I'm actually looking at this as a policy. I'm not looking at individual events saying an event's good or bad. I'm just saying as a policy, I think that organizations should not be thinking that the city is an unlimited source.
And that is your opinion, and we appreciate it. And does anyone else want to add theirs?
In looking at this, change the subject a little bit, but in looking at this, unless I'm missing something, where in the application process do we even require a preliminary budget or a budget? I can see where we ask for a final budget, but I don't find in here unless I'm missing it. Or is it?
I may have to add it. It's going to be required for them to submit a budget. So because this is tied to the budget process, in order for us to make a recommendation to council, they will have to submit a estimated budget.
Okay, as part of the application process, assuming this goes forward, I would like to see staff develop a uniform budget form for both the preliminary budget and the final budget, so that when the analysis is done, or when you're looking at this, we're not going to have 10 different or different types of budgets that have been put together. I think it's important. There's a budget format. I think the city should establish that format so that everyone understands it. And that's just simply for simplicity and everybody.
Yeah, they're called P&L statements, so it couldn't be too hard to do a profit and loss on a.
Right, but I think it needs to be uniform.
Right.
And I think we need to have that as part of the initial application process, and then, the 30-day after the final, they should submit a revised and show where the actuals ended up.
Well, they have to realize too that the budget that you're gonna get to in the beginning might not be true, and, you know, things change, stuff goes up, stuff goes down, so,
Well, that's why you have
yeah.
the true-up plan.
Yeah, that's what I mean, a preliminary one and then a final one.
Right, right.
And not everything on here is a money-making thing like the homecoming parades. That's going to be interesting, trying to fill all that out.
Sure.
It'll be very easy, we didn't.
Well, you know, they will, you know, they'll show, you know, in a.
Zero, that looks good.
It should have, you know, you know, a budget column for in-kind or cash contributions or whatever. So, I mean, it'll, as long as it's the same. The only other thing when we discussed this originally, looking at all of their budgetary issues that I know the city faces in the short term, and most recently some, you know, those numbers associated with cost allocation plan and what those changes mean to this city, I can't in good faith raise or vote to raise the limit from $3,000, which I think is quite sufficient, and in most cases maybe more than sufficient, to $5,000. We're now at a minimum of $50,000 of funding, and for 10 events, and I just think that that's, in these economic times, considering our own budget constraints, I don't think it's prudent. That's my feeling, and I can't go along with that. We've got some very substantial economic issues to face in the short term, the next 2 to 3 years, that we have to deal with, and this sort of action, in my opinion, is not good.
Okay, but the proposed city, the cost of the city is $28,000, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which would be $50,000. But if you look at the Chamber's food truck event, that's 11, so that's 60-something, 60 events for $28,000. So that's not 5 times 60. That's,
well, it's 5,000 times 10 events is what this policy would allow for.
but the proposed cost of the city is only $28,000.
Well, that's on a separate agenda item, and I think that, you know, I don't know.
Well, it's separate, but there's some facts there.
Well, no, but what we're saying here is we already have 10 sponsorships that we're dealing with, and that report relates to this one only to the extent that the first item is setting the policy on how we're going to provide funding for these events. This report, I don't think, is correct, at least this column of numbers, if this is for $5,000 per event.
Well, it says not to exceed, so if somebody's only charging, if somebody's event's only gonna cost them, like, one of them's like $400 or something, we're not gonna give them $5,000, I mean.
Well,
Like the parade.
I agree with Councilman Campion that it shouldn't exceed $3,000 per event, because right now we're talking about 10 events. We could be talking about 20 events in the future. This policy doesn't limit the number of events.
right.
It doesn't say, you know, not to exceed, you know, $5,000 or $50,000 per year from our budget, which I think it should. I think there should be a cap on this item, because I think that organizations, as events grow, like I said, their business plan needs to include the increase in cost, and it not just be that we can go back to the city and ask for more money. So I think that this does need to be a cap in the budget. I think for budget reasons, we need to know a cap of how much we're going to expend each year, whether, and no more than $3,000 per event, and no more than, my personal feeling would be $30,000 per year, or could be $50,000 per year, whatever the amount that the council decides, that there should be a cap out of the budget so that we don't exceed that amount. It's actually makes good financial sense that you plan for that amount, that it just doesn't become, you know, a couple of years ago, I mean, when we added it all up, we'd spent over $60,000. That's the sort of stuff that can just get out of control, because the council is put in a position of saying yes or no to events, and nobody wants to be in that position. So if there's a cap on the amount spent, and we get the application, we can say, okay, we only have $30,000 to offer in sponsorships, and we can then decide how much goes to each organization. Some events are much bigger, some events are much smaller, but
So you're saying,
just to have an unlimited budget item of 3,000 per event or 5,000 per event, and as the city grows, that item keeps growing without any controls?
well, you just said that this year we've got the fiscal year, this approval for 2017 and 2018. You said you don't want to have to approve it every year, but then you just said,
But this is a long-term policy. This is not a policy about this fiscal year. We're talking about a special event policy for the future. And I think it needs to have a limit on it. It needs to be no more than 3,000 per event and no more than whatever amount we decide on per calendar year.
You know, if number 5 were to say no more than 5,000 per event, fine. But I think what Councilman Hewer is saying is that in addition to that, there should be a second caveat whereby the entire budget line item would not exceed X dollars, whether that's 25,000, 30,000, however much it is, because that way there's certainty in our budget, the city's budget, that we are not going to outspend or overspend based on an individual per event cost of 5,000 per event, assuming it was under 50,000, there were 10 events. So I would feel much better I still think 3,000 is enough, but if you had 5,000 and then a not to exceed, say, 30,000 annually, then I think that is better, because then we would ensure that we wouldn't be spending $50,000.
so who's going to pick and choose so we don't want to every year have to do this. So if we say you can only have $30,000 and people put in for 50,000, who's going to have to choose again? So what you're saying, you want to avoid having to do that every year.
Well, I think
And
it's part of the
they're two
budget process.
I know
We're
they're
always
two
going to.
separate things, but one actually has to do with the other if you think about it.
Well,
There's no way it can't.
I think as part of the budget process, we're always going to have to do that. I think that's the responsibility of the council, that you're never going to be able to get away from not having to look at that. But there needs to be some parameters set up in the policy, because I'm not looking, I'm
Well, there are
just focusing
parameters.
on the policy. No, not really. It's kind of an open-ended budget item. It just says we'll spend up to 5,000 per event, not number of events, not how many, not a cap on it. It's just
5,000.
pretty much an open item.
We've also have 11 chamber events listed as one.
Yeah, I said that earlier.
Sorry.
Well, anybody else have any thoughts on this?
I'm comfortable with the 5,000 not to exceed, because they have to provide the budget and they have to get permission to have new things. And some things may stop happening also.
Well, some things will stop happening, but other things will come up. So I would
As in
I
what?
would like to limit it to 30,000 a year as a budget item, as a line item on the budget.
Which would be separate from the 5,000.
Well,
5,000
Paige
fine.
was first. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, she didn't make a motion. I'm just saying I would feel better about it if it had an amount.
Were you finished, or were you going to make the motion?
We could put a cap on it. Maybe 30,000 is cutting it awful close. But I think some of the things will end up being costing less than they're listed as anyway. So maybe 35 to give us a little pad, so we don't have to redo this every year.
I don't think we'd have to redo it because, it's, as Councilman Hewer said, it is council's ultimate, responsibility to approve these expenditures. If it gets to a point where we exceed the 30,000, then it becomes a responsibility of council to make a decision. And if the decision is that we just throw more money at it because we don't want to deal with it, that's one thing. Or if we wish to actually make a decision and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to stay within the budgetary cap of $30,000, which I think we need to do. I don't think because we have more and more requests, we should, increase that limit, because I know we have other costs that we have not addressed that are, crucial to the city's operation. And I think that takes priority over this, and I think at a minimum we should establish a budgetary cap. I would make a motion for $30,000, and I would like to do these separately because there are certain parts of it I don't agree with. So I would like to make a motion for a $30,000 cap for this program.
Second?
Well,
Discussion?
discussion?
I think you're cutting a little close with the 30,000 cap. The whole idea about having the 5,000 per event cap was in the event we had something that was larger. Obviously, you've got 10 items here, 11 items here. Not all of them are going to be $5,000, right? So we're kind of cutting ourselves short a little bit if you're saying only 30,000. I wouldn't have much of a problem with the 35,000.
We're still 15 grand short, just saying.
True. But again, you're not figuring 5,000 per event.
Right.
I mean, that's, if you look at the list of sitting before us, I've only counted 4 that came close to that. 2 of them actually, one of them went over.
Well, then the $30,000 cap shouldn't be a problem.
True, but do you want to see it again next year because for some reason somebody went over?
No, you won't see it because it'll be part of the budget process.
There's nothing definite about that, Kurt.
Well, the events that we choose to sponsor for fiscal 17-18 are not, it's separate from the policy. This is a policy discussion about how much, as a city, do we want to continue to spend? Do we want to spend $60,000 a year again? Do we feel that our budget can sustain that? Because in reality, we have other pressing needs to the operation of the city out of our budget.
We're looking, we know they're 2 separate things, but if you look at one and then you look at the funding for the other one, they go together. I mean, you can say they're separate, but you've got to look at how much it's going to cost for what these people are saying their events, and it does come to 28,000. But what if somebody, okay, so that's 28,000 for the people now. What if somebody else does want to come in and we've got a cap at 30,000?
My report says 29.
What?
Mine says 29.
No, I'm over here, proposed policy
Right
cost
here.
to the city.
Yeah, right here.
So Mary Lou, for
Okay.
27-28, it would, 30,000 would cover the cost of the current events. If other events come in, at that point, maybe some events need to get less funding because they have been going on for a long time, they're self-sustaining, they're making a profit. I mean, the idea is that hopefully events would become self-sustaining, whether or not maybe their business comes in that wants the sponsorship, or, you know, or they don't need the funding because they've increased their fees.
Yeah, that's, good luck with they're all going to be self-sustaining. I mean, good
I'm
luck
not
with
saying
that
that's
one.
all. Right.
You know, but okay, if that's, we can put that little pink bubble over our heads and think everybody here that's trying to do stuff for Galt one day is going to be self-sustaining.
Well, Mary Lou,
When we're
you've ran
50,000
a lot of fundraisers, I've ran a lot of fundraisers, and I can tell you, part of my business plan is not to think that the city's going to pay for my fundraising efforts.
But you're not doing stuff for the city. What fundraising effort are you talking about? I mean,
These organizations are raising funds. They're not raising money for the city. They're raising money for themselves, many of them. Some are events for the city. Some
well, I
are
guess we could go on forever, so let's just call for the votes. Or we could be here till midnight, arguing the same stuff.
Which one
So
are we
we'll
voting on?
start, Kurt.
The $30,000.
All right, Kurt said 30, Lori said,
Second.
He seconded it.
seconded. So, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
No.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye.
Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
No.
Mayor Cottrell.
No. All right, so, can we go to, do I have a motion for the second one?
How about a motion for a $5,000?
Okay, a motion for
Is that what you want?
the special event sponsorship policy.
Well, that's in the policy.
As it stands.
So moved?
Okay, we're good then.
Second.
What's the motion?
I guess there isn't one. I guess we're going to the second.
Are you recommending staff? Are you,
Yeah, so there was a motion.
I had requested that these items be handled separately.
Okay.
Right.
So if you want to take item number 5, or the amendment, paragraph 5 is your next motion to go with staff's recommendation of not to exceed $5,000 per event, is that what you were?
Okay, so you want 5 and 13 to be separate?
Yes, he does.
Yes.
All right, okay. Do I have a motion on number 5? Was that you? Okay, you moved. Who
In a
seconded?
second.
Okay. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
No.
Councilmember Campion?
No.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. All right, number 13. How do we want that to be read? The way it is, or was there someone who wanted to change something?
Armando, item 13, is,
wasn't quite
when you say final operating budget, shouldn't it be final, costs?
Yeah, that's,
I mean, shouldn't it be the final
Well,
actual cost?
there could actually be
Not a
more
budget,
costs.
but actual.
We don't want to pay for salaries, so operational budget, not including the salaries is
Their actual cost.
right.
Uh-huh.
An actual cost. Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else want to interrupt, or do we?
Move on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Second. Okay, moved by Campion, second by, Johnson. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye.
And I'd like to add one other motion, and that would be that what we talked about is that as part of the application process, a budget be submitted with each application, preliminary budget, and that secondly, staff develop the forms, uniform budget forms or whatever, to be completed with each application.
Is that
That's
a
a
motion? Okay, do I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, Campion and Hewer, call for the vote, please.
Did you have a question?
Was the budget already in the policy?
It was implied, but I'd be glad to write it in there so they're, just to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because it does not appear in here.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Back to you again, Armando. Are you having fun yet? Special event sponsorship approvals for fiscal year 17-18.
Not the resolution. Resolution.
I don't think it is.
Hello again.
Mayor, you know, we made specific motions on 513, and added a motion. I would recommend we adopt the entire resolution adopting the policy
As amended with the,
as amended.
as amended by the motions.
Okay, do I have a?
So moved.
Okay. Campion, Cruz, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
No.
Councilmember Campion?
I have to vote no on that because we voted no on one of them, so.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Passed 3-2. Okay, now, where are we? Oh, Armando, you again, the 10. Oh, there you are.
So at that same April 18th meeting, council asked, directed staff to make changes to the sponsorship policy regarding on how we calculated our estimates. You asked that we remove our soft costs, and soft costs are defined as facility rentals and work being performed by persons scheduled to work being done by staff already scheduled to work. Since the April 18th meeting, two significant matters have arisen. The first is the construction on 4th Street, which caused the relocation of the food truck event onto C Street. City purchased some water-filled safety barricades to block off the street, and city staff feels that this should be used for future events when we close down the street for a duration of time. So for the food truck event, we would suggest that we do this, we implement that. That would add a cost of $550 to each chamber event. The second matter that has risen is the Galt FFA Ag Boosters is requesting to hold a Farm to Fork formal dinner in September between 4th Street, on 4th Street between C and E, similar to the food truck chamber event. The FFA event will be an upscale catered event with tickets ranging from $65 to $85. Staff has determined that this event will require street closures with water-filled barricades and an assignment of a police officer or 2 security guards for the event. The boosters are requesting that the city co-sponsor the event by waiving all costs for street closures and security. The cost for that event would be $855. In the staff report, you can find a table showing costs broken down hard, soft, and the amount the city will sponsor and the cost to the requesting organization. I need to make a note on there. Please deduct $200 from every 15 minutes. It was discovered that the food is paid for by grant and reimbursed to the city. So that would take that amount down to $4,025. So staff is recommending that the city sponsor the 10 special events listed in the table for the fiscal year 2017-18 using the adopted special event sponsorship policy. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Well, I'm going to say what I said last time about the every 15 minutes. I think that the school should be sponsoring some of this. I mean, or the school board or someone. That's just my thought. Did we look into that? Didn't we talk to someone about that?
It was mentioned at the last meeting, the last time we discussed this.
I think every 15 minutes. The police department's part of it. I think it's important for prevention and the education community. I just think it should be off of the event list. I don't really look at that as a special event. I think it's funded mostly, most of the funding that's required is by the police officers. I think it's...
Is that it? The 4,225 is mostly the police officers?
Yeah.
And depending on where the event is held, I've been informed that when it's at Galt High, we have to close down the streets, A Street. When it's at Liberty Ranch, the street closures are minimal with some of the things happening inside their parking lot. So when we have it at the Galt High School, the cost will be higher than Liberty Ranch.
We don't have to close the street. Liberty actually closed the street this year, but Galt's only closed the street this last year, I believe, but 2 years ago. In the past, they'd had on the football field. So that would be a city manager and police chief. They could cut some costs that way if they needed to by telling the school they can't close the street down. So there's ways to save on that one, and the school does provide the salary for the people that help with it.
Well, salaries is we don't put into it.
Yeah, you're right.
Salaries
Not
is
ours,
not
but
something
theirs.
that should be into it, but what is
You're
the
right.
school, what does the school district provide?
That I'm not sure.
That's all, and we provide $4,200.
Well, it's not going to be, we can cut some of those costs.
And
Are you speaking on behalf of the school district?
Yeah, are you? Thank you, Kurt. Yeah, really.
Are you speaking on behalf of the event?
Check out if they don't?
Well, this year they had one officer and two officers. One of them should have been the SRO, but he was on vacation, so that SRO would have been a soft cost. The CHP come out, the fire department, they're the ones who do most of the work. They really just need two officers to handcuff and fake arrest somebody. So we could cut some of these if we don't have the personnel available.
Well, if it's two police officers, why doesn't the city pay for one and the school district pay for the other?
Well, the SRO should be one of them, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a responsibility maybe of the manager to draft a letter or contact the superintendent. And on the council's behalf, since
Right.
we've asked this question, I think that would be prudent for the manager to ask why or what their level of participation is.
Right.
Well, I've been at a bunch of them, so, yeah, they could.
I have nothing against it, but
Oh, I know.
I think we've been talking about cost sharing, so.
So we could very easily put it back on the football field, you could require them. It's up to the city manager and the chief to close down the street.
Along those same lines, I think the discussion should include also the 5K run as well as homecoming. Parade. I know the city these are what we're contributing, but
Right.
what is the school district contributing as well? So I think those are all good questions, and hopefully the city manager can come back with a response.
before we go any further on the every 15 minutes, I'm sorry, after being part of those numerous times, if you put it on the football field, it does not have the same effect to those kids as you do on the street. Okay? As far as I can remember, Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's always been on the street.
No.
Well, let me put it this way. I
You were there.
guarantee you on the street you're going to have more of an effect on these kids as far as DUI and driving under the influence, I don't care what it is, than you do on a football field, because they're going to look and say, okay, yeah, whatever. You see the actual thing occurring on the street, as in real life, it has a serious impact on these kids.
Right. But you remember when
Yeah, but that's up to
Palliser,
them where they have it. I mean,
Yeah.
we can,
well, we have to give them push, but Palliser was questioning the cost when she was here too, telling us it was.
I don't know, we can either pay the costs up front, or we could pay it up later for children who are injured in auto accidents as a result of driving under the influence.
And every 15 minutes isn't a fundraiser, it's an education prevention event. I mean, I think that's a whole different worthwhile kind of area. And actually, in my reading some of the issues, the Measure R funds, is that one of the things that Measure R funds was to be used for was education and prevention. And I just think that falls under a different category than some of these other events. I also think when we look at these events, we need to look at what these events are fundraising events for organizations, and particularly, again, organizations where the money doesn't stay here in our community, but we're asking the community to sponsor events. And even something as simple as the Farm to Fork, which I think is a fabulous idea. You know, they're charging an admission fee and they're raising funds. They should be covering all their costs. I think when we look at events coming on board, we need to look at events covering the costs of holding the events in our community, particularly fundraisers. And, you know, some of these events are generating a substantial amount of money for the organizations putting them on. There are events that are not generating funds, that are just local events,
Right.
Heritage
festivals, extravaganza. Those are events that the city should look at sponsorships for. There are other events that are fundraisers that the money goes outside of our community to other organizations that I just think look at differently in how I look at it.
Well, I'm going to surprise you, Lori, and agree with you. I agree with you. There are some that really do that are. I agree with you about extravaganza and the Heritage Festival, and there are some that, and I even think, even though a lot of people come maybe from somewhere else, we self-sponsor the IDC, which is, I mean, there are some events that are fabulous just for our own people to come out and see.
The Bird Festival, IDC,
Yeah.
I mean, there are those events that the city is sponsoring completely. I mean,
And, you know, working with Shop Local is what the other two are. So
Mhm.
that's the chamber and the city.
Mhm.
So Mark, when you took part in every 15 minutes, were you there for 5.5 hours?
Was I there for 5.5 hours? From beginning to end? Probably
It's
a
about
little
an hour
more
and a
than
half
that.
presentation, so
Probably a little more than that, because there's behind the scenes portions of that.
the CHP handles all that.
Well, they do. They didn't before.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think these costs will come down on that.
Well, now here we go, because, you know, there is, as you look at the events too, there, you know, the Chamber Food Truck event's really great too but that brings a lot of people around. They don't really ask for that much for 11 events.
I think that the food truck event has done more to promote downtown than any other event we've had. And
I would agree.
it's, you know, but at the same time, the chamber, as the event has grown, I don't know if the event will ever grow a whole lot. And I mean, I know they don't make a lot of money in the wintertime, but they are out there, they are out selling, beer. You know, so they are having some income, but I understand that they're not. I think it's a good event for promoting downtown and for bringing people out and for the community, because I think that is pretty much a local event.
Well, and I think you say, now that you said something about it, it is interesting to look at someone's budget and they want $4,000 and then they let us know that they made 80 or 90. I'm just picking numbers.
Yeah, I know.
Making something goofy.
Well,
Then you kind of go, whoa, you know.
or an event that told us they made 15,000 but spent, you know, 12,000. It's like, well, what's your business plan that if you're doing this as a fundraiser that you would work harder on having on the profit end, right?
Well, we can beat this up all night long.
Yeah, that's true.
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a question for Armando first. Explain to me by definition what your estimated what the hard costs are and what your soft costs are in these key event columns.
If you look on the attached staff report, each event is identified, and you can see the estimated hard costs listed for each one, the positions for block.
Those are your salaries on your hard costs.
Street closures. And then you can also see the fee waivers, the soft costs, the Littleton Center rentals. There are hard costs such as trash bags, porta potty rentals that are not salary.
But we do have another ordinance that once a year gives a nonprofit a soft cost of a rental of one of to rent the places, correct? Still?
Yes.
So some of your soft costs, sometimes your hard costs and soft costs include salaries, correct?
Yes, if a staff member is working, is scheduled to work that day, they are considered soft costs. So you could have a public works worker working on a Friday, putting out barricades that's already on duty, and that's defined as a soft cost. We bring him or her in on a Saturday, that's an overtime cost, which is a hard cost.
But even when those employees are doing, so when the employees are tied up putting up barricades, then there's other duties that are not getting done that have to be done. I mean, so we...
Correct. For my staff, when they're putting out barricades or getting things ready for these events, bathrooms aren't getting open, they're not being cleaned. Things that still need to be done, but...
Yeah.
They're simply on duty. You're not calling them in on overtime.
Correct. Or scheduling them for that specific event.
Bonnie, you had something you wanted to say?
So you all know it, Bonnie Rodriguez in the city of Galt, but on behalf of the chamber, got many texts during this conversation. You're there, right? So on behalf of the chamber, we just need a little bit of clarification because from our understanding, if you pass it, like it sounds like you're going to, as is, the chamber would need to pay the $448 or whatever for the 11 events, because that would be over the $5,000. And so we're either asking to get some sort of understanding that we're not going to pay that, or if we have to pay that, then we will have to relook at holding 11 of them, maybe only holding 10, so that we don't, and because we actually don't make any money, even with the beer thing, it actually ends up being more of a cost for us to be out there. We do it because people want it. So first some clarification so that the chamber knows what to expect and where we need to go.
Well, I say give it to them this year, saying that, we've already said that they're the biggest event going on for the city that brings most people in, and, it was an afterthought.
Under the policy, it does allow city council to approve a higher amount than $5,000 should they choose to.
Please explain to me again, we bought those barriers. Who bought the barriers? The city? So now we're charging them?
Yes, the city purchased
Okay.
the barriers.
But like you pointed out, it's really 11 events.
Right, yeah.
So is that what you're proposing, that all of these policy costs of the city all be increased to 5,000?
No, you can go over the 5,000 threshold should you choose per an event. If the food truck event is asking or is estimated at $485 over the allowed amount, you could approve the extra $485 should you choose to.
So what's your current little pie chart here, or your current chart here, it shows 3,000, but you're increasing all those to 5?
Well, they all don't go up to 5.
Up to 5.
Up to 5.
Up to, not 5.
Okay, so the proposed cost, like on the food event, you're saying goes to 5, and then the cost to the chamber would be $485?
Correct, if you do not approve the extra $485.
So you want to amend your motion, Mark?
I can amend my motion to show that, yes. I do have one question, though, before I go any further with it. Until we decided that we were going to put those barriers out there, there was no cost to that event, correct? Am I correct on that?
There was no hard cost to that event.
But now that we've chosen, for safety's sake, to put those barriers out there, we're charging them $485 per event.
Correct. It's Yes, it's been a decision that the city feels that those barricades are needed for these type of events, and moving forward, we would require them unless city council waived that.
So it's the cost of staff filling them and putting them out?
Correct. The chamber couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah.
We would have to bring them out, load them, connect it, fire hydrant to fill them, and then get rid of the water, take them back.
But as long as the event's on C Street until 4th Street gets up and running again, we're waiving that. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Well, I have a personal opinion about that too. It should stay on C Street, but we'll work on that one later, I guess.
Like I said, I continue to think that we shouldn't be sponsoring events that don't raise money that stays within the city of Galt. So some of these events don't. I mean, such as Tiny Smiles as an organization outside the city of Galt.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe we need to readdress this or get a little more verbiage in there somewhere. I'm inclined to agree with you.
Well, the policy we just approved did say,
I
you
know.
know,
You do have the option to pick and choose these events. You do not have to fund all 10 events.
That's where they start throwing the bricks at you, but okay.
Well, because the estimated hard costs on well, we've got two of them exceed it. And I think in order to stay within the estimate, you could offset the cost of the food truck as well as the Strawberry Festival by a reduction in the Tiny Smiles run. You simply reallocate those funds and still stay within the estimated hard cost.
Please repeat yourself, I'm sorry.
Well, we've got two items which are over the $5,000 limit, if I'm reading this correctly, which is the food truck event and then the Chamber Strawberry Festival. And if the council's inclined to approve this the way it is, has been submitted under the total estimated hard costs, one way to do that would be to do an internal shift of the funds. That would be to reduce Tiny Smiles by the amount over by the Chamber event for the food truck and the Strawberry Festival.
And every 15 minutes, we can save some money on that, I believe, also.
Well, but we're doing the proposed cost to the city, and then nothing is over $5,000. The 28,000 has nothing over $5,000.
You mean, where are you looking? I'm looking at this page, this one.
We haven't updated that was put in our boxes.
Yeah, that's the one I got. Yeah.
Yeah, 29,825.
Yeah, I got 28,250. Which one's right?
Yeah, but, okay, those are, again, proposed policy costs, but again, that's based on 3,000. Didn't we just change that to 5?
there was an updated one in our
You don't have
box.
the updated one.
No, I don't.
It's in your box.
5,000 that's in here.
Okay, I don't have
I
that.
hadn't looked at it, yeah. No, I got it. No, it was in my box, but I
Okay.
hadn't looked at it. I didn't realize we had gotten
Oh,
the
thank
corrected
you.
version.
So the corrected version only does 5,000
Right,
to the city.
okay, so then, if you're inclined to fund the $485, you could take it out of any one of the others, and if Tiny Smiles is the selected line item, then that could be shifted.
Well, maybe we could just make an exception this time, because we've got,
11 events.
No.
You know, as much as I mean, that's $855, it doesn't appear to be much, but the FFA boosters, I mean, if every I don't really understand as a new event why all of a sudden, why they start out their event by asking the city to fund it. I mean, they're going to be charging, like what I saw, $65 a person. They're.
Maybe we should charge them.
I mean, no, and I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying other organizations hold events too that don't come to us every time asking for funding. I mean, there are lots of organizations holding fundraisers in the community that don't come to the city looking for event dollars to do it. As much as I think it sounds absolutely wonderful, but it's just, I don't understand at what point do we start saying that you're going to hold a fundraiser that you come to the city to ask for the money for it, like Tiny Smiles. Tiny Smiles needs to be, it is a fundraiser for a national organization, and it needs to be sustaining itself, not asking for the city to sponsor it. I mean, it's not a community, it's not an event to raise money within this community. In FFA does raise money within the community, but, well, we can, I mean, because on top of these events are the ones that the city is doing themselves, IDC, Road Festival, Lighting of the Night. I mean, those are events that we're also, not always guaranteed that we're going to, have a profit each year. Some years, such as this year, we don't. And but we're putting those events on and taking the, I don't know, it's very difficult.
Well, it's very difficult, and you're right, but we don't have to take this en masse. You can do whatever you want to do. If you feel like there's some that, and this is where it does get difficult, but.
Well, I would make a motion not to fund Tiny Smiles Run.
I would second that. I believe you're right. It's not a local organization. It's national, and it's the taxpayer of the city subsidizing an effort. It's a fine effort, and I applaud them for doing it. But I don't think the Galt citizen taxpayer should be subsidizing that.
It's over $4,300 of hard costs to the city.
Yeah.
Right, and maybe with the FFA boosters, I'm inclined to agree with you too. Like it's their first year, so we don't even.
But Tiny Smiles, you got to consider that they bring so many people from out of the area in, and I mean, they do donate to the city. They donated some, what do you call those little things? Defibrillators. And the restaurants are booked. I mean,
yeah, I think, you're right, because I think the hotels are booked too.
They would probably be buying houses if they're running to buy.
I think we had numbers given by the finance director that would estimate that estimated the tax revenue from these events, and they don't come near what these costs are.
But you have to look at what happens to the restaurants that they get booked, not just our tax revenue, the benefit to the community as a whole.
Well, and that, no offense, but that was kind of the way that was all based on stuff was astronomical what you really have to make in order to do that, which as far as I'm concerned was a little off the wall there. Well, I mean, if the restaurants aren't, if we're not including the restaurants and the hotels and that stuff as
I mean, if we really want to look at what books hotels, I mean, we have a historical society that's holding 17 weddings this year. People come into town and stay for 3 days. They're not asking us to subsidize their events. They're running their events, and those fill up our hotels and restaurants also. There are many things that are held in town that fill up our events that don't ask the city to come in and help pay for those events. Those are examples of things that are happening. Tiny Smiles, in their budget, needs to figure out if they're going to hold the event, how to cover the cost of their event. Yeah. That is what you do.
Well, I'll save that for next year.
We had a motion.
You actually have two motions on the floor.
Okay, what is the
first motion was Vice Mayor Cruz, which is to sponsor the 10 special events listed in the agenda report, and he amended it to include an additional
$485 for the food truck event. And second, we have Councilmember Hewer's motion, seconded by Campion, to remove Tiny Smiles from
Okay, which one do we do first?
usually it's the same.
Yeah, you
Second one?
You do the second one.
Okay, call for a vote on eliminating Tiny Smiles.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
No.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye?
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
No.
Mayor Powers.
No. We can look into that things next year, I just. All right, now, the first one was to go,
Let me read it again.
thank you.
Upon a motion by Vice Mayor Cruz, seconded by Councilmember Lamson, sponsoring the 10 special events listed in the agenda report, and include an additional $485 for the food truck event for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Motion to amend.
Okay, what's the amendment?
Remove Tiny Smiles from that motion,
Okay, do I have a second on that?
which means you can then bring it back under a separate motion.
I didn't hear what you said, Kurt. You need to put your mic down. I can't hear you.
I said
Well, you
motion,
just voted not to take it out, not to take it out. What are you doing now?
well, it'll include all the other events,
Okay,
the other 9 events. And then there can be another motion after that if someone wishes to fund Tiny Smiles, is my point. I'm not in opposition to the majority of these on here, but if the way that motion is voted on, I have voted against every single one of these, and that's not my intent. My intent is to support the ones I wish to support and not support those that I don't feel taxpayers should pay for.
well, you just did that, though.
No, that's the motion.
Okay, do I have a second on that one?
Second?
Okay, call for the vote. Which one are we doing now? The second one?
It was a motion to amend. It was a motion
Okay,
to
he
amend.
wanted to amend, so vote on the motion to amend to leave out Tiny Smiles. Is what's the,
So make sure I get this right. We're voting on the amendment portion of it, or we're voting on the whole thing with the 2 amendments included?
No, the one amendment, which is the motion to amend the motion to remove Tiny Smiles from the original motion, which was
I like
all
the
10.
Three Stooges. Who's on first? Okay, explain it to me.
Just asking for Tiny Smiles to be voted on separately.
Correct.
which we just did, actually. But whatever.
Okay.
Took me a minute.
Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye?
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. So I guess we're going to vote on Tiny Smiles separately now.
Someone makes a motion.
I move that we vote on Tiny Smiles separately
Second.
to fund them.
To fund them in the amount of $43.10,
Right.
or actually $48.65.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer,
No.
Councilmember Campion,
No.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Cruz, Powers.
Well, at least I wasn't paying this time. Aye.
Sorry. Thank you.
So as it stands right now, we'll spend almost $30,000 on events.
Crazy.
We did our not to exceed.
Correct.
Okay. Hold on. All right, now we're to the city clerk's report, the beautification committee appointee by Vice Mayor Cruz.
Appoint a community member to the Beautification Committee to fill a vacant position and remaining term ending December 2018. Vice Mayor Cruz appointed Fatima Ortega, who resigned her position back in April, and the city clerk's office received an application from Darlene Brown, which is attached to the agenda report.
And I would love to have Darlene take over that position.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I needed.
No, I didn't see her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we did the Historical Society. Now we're at comments by staff. We'll start with Miss Emily.
Thank you. I don't have anything to add this evening.
Okay, Chris?
Quick development update. Good news. Sacramento County approved the tax sharing agreement for Eastview this morning at their board meeting. So the next step for the project will be to go to LAFCO, and we're anticipating that going at the beginning of August. The city-initiated annexation, we're still working on it. We actually have draft documents of the 35% air quality mitigation plan and the GHG reduction plan for the areas north of Twin Cities. It's taking a little bit longer than anticipated. We're still kind of trying to wrangle some of the measures on that document, so I'm not quite sure when we'll actually get that ready, so I don't have like a timeline for you, but we are continuing to work on that to get it out as quickly as possible. The Royal Delta is close to pulling their permit. They're about 99% complete. I would expect them to get started on their renovation probably by the end of the month and maybe within a couple weeks. So you'll see activity out there in the near future.
Okay, Mark?
Oh, usually start.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I can do it. Oh.
That Mark.
That Mark.
I'm going around.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. 4th Street project is still on schedule, and if you've been over there lately, you'll see that the curb and gutter is starting to be formed, and we hope to have the flat work, concrete done within the next 10 days or so. And all the underground is done, and so we're moving right along. That's it.
Great. Cora? Okay. Armando?
No, I think I've caused enough trouble.
You're the troublemaker, Armando.
I'd just like to say that the food truck event, Bike Rodeo, amazing success, but there was a lot of people behind the scenes that really helped out and made this event successful with donations and their time. So I want to publicly say thank you to the Liberty Ranch High School National Honor Society, the Public Works employees, the Galt Market employees, the Galt Finance Department, the Rotary Club, Cal Waste, the Comfort Inn, Galt Business Builder Mortgage Consultants, Public Works Streets, the Auto Zone, Shop Local, Lodi Bike Shop, and the Galt Central Shop. Personnel from each one of those donated these bikes and these helmets and their time to go out there and make this event a huge success. So I just want to say thank you publicly to them.
Jean? Ashley?
I just want to say thank you very much for letting me be here this evening. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you, and it's always a pleasure to work with the City of Galt.
Nice to have you. Bert?
Nothing.
Paige?
The high school graduation has happened. It's been wonderful to watch our outstanding students receive achievements and scholarships and head off to college, and the other schools will be out, so drive safely. And we've got some things coming up with Cora Thursday, don't forget.
Oh, yeah. Lori?
I attended the Cable Commission, SEC Cable Commission on June 1st. Nothing to report out. We just adopted a preliminary budget. And then I just wanted to say thank you to Public Works for the tour on the 25th. They did a great job. Thank you, Mark. I really think that'd be a great opportunity if we continue to next year, maybe we can promote it more widely. I found it was really interesting and they did a good job. So thank you.
This is Mark. Mark next to me to the left, Mark.
I spend more time listening and not writing down my notes. Actually, I attended the Memorial Day event out at the Galt Cemetery. It was contagious. It was a wonderful event. There were a huge number of people out there. I did want to pass on a special thank you to Officer Greener. He was part of the ceremonial team who placed the wreath. Outstanding job. Really looked sharp. Did us proud. That's all I have.
Okay, believe it or not, I have nothing, so we'll adjourn the meeting.